Hi there, let's do the astro weather for the 1st of November, and I cannot believe I am saying that. What is time? Now, when I say it is a busy day, strap in. There are so many aspects today. It is going to be a roller coaster, okay? At 1:15 a.m., we have an aspect between the Gemini moon and Pluto in Capricorn. So, this is that idea of a Gemini moon being quite fast moving, quite chatty, quite action taking, very airy, and that Pluto in Capricorn really wanting a deep, mature look at something. So we might feel like we're being pushed by that Gemini moon to move past some obstacles that have come up in the shadows, have come up as fears, particularly with that eclipse energy still rolling through. So this could cause anxiety. So you might find that your dreams are very stressful and you might wake up feeling like you have done a lot of overnight work. Okay, there are a lot of aspects before we even get to 5:30 in the morning. So 1:47, there is a quincunx between the moon and Mars in Scorpio. So again, that lighthearted Gemini moon trying to find a compromise, but it is trying to compromise with an intense and passionate Scorpio Mars. So Scorpio Mars wants to take action, but it wants to do it in a very intentional way, and it wants to be able to connect to what it's doing intentionally and from a deep perspective. And Gemini moon just wanting to rush in and get it done, get as much done as possible. So we could find that that compromise coming up again in the dreams could make us waking up very tired. Then we have a Lilith aspect coming in here. So Mercury making a quintile aspect to Lilith. So Mercury being in Scorpio. So we are in the depths here. We want deep communication. We are looking at the shadow side. Lilith being the shadow side of our emotional self, being in Virgo still. So looking at how we criticize ourselves and others, how we judge ourselves and others, and how we may have chosen others over ourselves. And so Mercury and Scorpio bringing some communication, maybe bringing in some new information as well. So in the dreamland there, we might be finding that we are seeing, how that has affected us. And we might be dreaming of moments that have come up, particularly again with that eclipse energy and the South Node energy that is around. Things in the past may come up where we have definitely put ourselves second and that it has been a detriment. At 3 a.m., a biquintile between the sun and the moon. So this will be a little bit helpful. This is the sun shining a light on our emotional needs and making us look at what needs to be let go. Okay, so Scorpio taking a really deep look into the shadows, but Gemini wanting to stay on the surface. So it's a little bit of a battle there. It's kind of that same similar energy of the eclipse where the depths of Scorpio being brought to the surface by Taurus, except we are the sun in Scorpio shining the light of the depths onto the light-hearted surface of Gemini wanting to rush around. So then 5:30 a.m., a quincunx between the moon and Mercury. So again, another compromise needed. So it's very up and down in our dreams, okay? The compromise needed between that fast-moving communication style of Gemini and the intense, deep communication style of Mercury in Scorpio. So really needing to find a compromise there with how to move forward and work with the Gemini pace, but remembering that we need to be connecting to that on a deeper level. Then at 8:05 a.m., we are getting a little poke in the Chiron wound. So remembering that Chiron represents our woundings from things that happened in the material world from the ages of 3 until 23. This is a positive aspect. This is the moon in Gemini, so a curious emotional state coming in and having a look and trying to problem solve some things that have been poked potentially by all of that energy this morning and definitely over with the eclipse energy, having a little poke around in our Chiron wound. Then at 1:18 a.m., a biquintile between the moon in Gemini and Mars in Scorpio. So again, this is that compromise that we looked at earlier on, and this is going to help us move forward, and it's going to be kind of showing us what we need to let go in order to move forward. Then 3:31 p.m., a quintile between Mercury and Pluto. So the feelings that were brought up with the moon aspecting Pluto earlier in the morning, it might be ready to come to the surface and be talked about or to be understood by you. So it might start making a little bit more sense or you may even end up in a conversation with someone that helps you be able to take action, and it will lead to a more of an understanding of what the mature emotional lesson was that was coming up in your shadows earlier on. At 4:11 p.m. we have another look at the Lilith placement there in Virgo, with the moon in Gemini making a quintile aspect to it. So this is asking us to let go of the attachments to the emotions relating to that Lilith in Virgo situation that came up earlier. So in order to move through the emotions, we are being asked to unattach from them and just understand them from that third party perspective. At 4:52, we get a bit of Uranus energy coming in, which will help us. This is like revolutionary ideas and thinking outside the box. So the moon in Gemini coming in with that semi-sextile, it might bring in a sudden change that helps us see something from a different perspective. Or it could just be a new idea that you come up with that kind of makes it all make sense. You know, you might have been contemplating all of these dark, emotional, kind of Pluto in Capricorn feelings, Lilith in Virgo self-criticism feelings. And we will get to this aspect, and that light, airy Gemini ability to be able to be on both sides of the polarity might help you be able to see it from the old version of you and the new version of you. And it will help you be able to deal with anything that sort of comes up there that might be, you know, a revolutionary way for you to look at your emotional state. At 5:40 p.m., we see the biquintile between Moon in Gemini and Pluto in Capricorn. So after we've seen these kind of revolutionary and maybe different ways of thinking from that Uranus aspect with the Moon, we'll again be able to have a look at it through that filter of our shadowland, of our where we might have had fears, where we might have been dealing with addiction behaviors, and where we might have been keeping too many secrets from ourselves, because Moon in Gemini, very chatty, and Pluto in Capricorn likes to keep its little secrets. So in order to let go of those fears or let go of those shadow programmings, we do need to be able to communicate with ourselves about it and understand it from that perspective. So this aspect will help us do that. At 5:57 p.m., there is likely to be a conversation that comes up that helps you understand somebody else. And in the understanding of somebody else, it's going to really help cement those ideas that we've seen come through with that Uranus aspect. And this will help us move forward, and it will be able to be something that we can connect to our own story. Somebody may share something with us, or we might see a piece of information that comes in that makes us understand that everybody does have these shadows and does have these fears. And in order to move forward, that would be very helpful information. At 6:25 p.m., we have the moon squaring Venus. So not a very good time to bond with others. And it's likely to be because you are exhausted from the amount of emotional work you've already done during the day. And this is a very unbalanced feminine energy aspect. So emotional arguments coming up, creativity questioning. So questioning your own creative output. So if you're someone who does art, you might find yourself tearing up a painting after you've done it, because it's like a bit of a battle energy between, you know, lighthearted Gemini moon emotions and also that Venus in Virgo being very critical. So, you know, Gemini wants to sort of chat and chat and chat, and Virgo very self-critical. So just be aware that if you think you are ready to have that conversation with someone, that you aren't over speaking, because this is kind of that energy where you might find yourself later on thinking, why did I say so much? All right. Particularly in Scorpio season, where we are kind of asked to keep to ourselves a little bit more and to really hold space within ourselves. And over talking, particularly with Gemini moon around, can often lead to those self-judgmental thoughts of sharing too much. So at 8:48 p.m., the aspect between the sun and the moon. And so this will be the sun in Scorpio shining a light on the ability of that Gemini moon to see both sides of the argument, to see the polarity in emotions. So here we go, Gemini, you know, wanting to be lighthearted, chatty, and like get to know everybody and have a really nice time. And Scorpio saying, no, 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 we want to have deep connections here. Okay, so this could lead to compulsive or obsessive behaviors if we are switching between those two polarities, because, you know, that need to be social and then that need to be alone. You could find yourself maybe with people and then switching into that, oh, why are they still here kind of vibe. So just being careful of that and understanding that those sort of emotional triggers that are coming up if you are around people and want to be alone are from this aspect, and maybe just saying to you that you have had an emotional day and you're exhausted and your energy needs to rest on its own Scorpio does enjoy having that time alone to process its emotions. At 10:52 p.m., we see a nicer aspect here. So this is kind of looking through all of the ways in which you have adapted or seen new ways forward in your emotional shadowlands throughout the day in order to problem solve how you're moving forward towards your destined purpose, your most fulfilling purpose. So this is, the moon in Gemini sextiling the North Node in Aries. And so North Node in Aries is representative of where we are meant to be heading, where our most soul-fulfilling purpose is. And with that moon in Gemini coming in with a little bit of curiosity, it's sort of asking us, how we can now problem solve some things that may have come up that we felt had been sort of putting a stop to our movement forward, okay? And we do have Saturn going direct in a few days. So we are sort of moving towards this energy of seeing a way through, seeing a way forward. And this sextile with the North Node is going to really help that. So even though we've had a lot of emotional aspects during the day, with this one here, it's going to, I think, help us wrap it all together into a nice little package of being able to move forward. And then the last aspect of the day, not a fun one, but potentially a needed one, okay? So the moon is going void at 11:36 p.m. with a square to Neptune in Pisces. So this is the energy of things being very cloudy, and it is the energy that we could slip into self-deception. So if you have had that roller coaster day and you have been affected by all of these aspects, this could really be that moment where you look back and think, oh, I did overspeak. Oh, I overreacted. Oh, and we can get very, very unable to see the actual facts of what happened and very unforgiving with ourselves and potentially with others, because it's that idea that the Gemini moon wants to talk its way through something, but that Neptune Pisces fog will make it very difficult, because these two aspects, we've got the air aspect and the water aspect, deep dark ocean Pisces. And even though the moon and Neptune are both kind of dreamy, passive vibes, here they are kind of facing up against each other in a little bit of a battle, because the moon in Gemini wanting to have a good time, right? Feel all the nice emotions, and Neptune in Pisces just putting a fog over that ability. So just be aware that if you have had a day where you might have overspoken or you might have overreacted emotionally because of everything that was going on, we could really fall into some really negative self-talk overnight, because the moon will stay void from 11:36 until 8:30 the next morning. So be kind to yourself on the 1st of November. It's a very roller coaster energy sort of day, and it's a bit like that throughout that whole week, because we are dealing with the fallout and the residual energy from that Taurus eclipse, okay? And as always, journal all of the things. It does make it so much easier, particularly with Gemini moon, because Gemini, being ruled by Mercury, likes to communicate. So it's quite good to communicate with yourself in a journal on these things, okay? And that's all I've got for you today. I will see you tomorrow.